It is a beautiful afternoon here in California's wine country, North Bay, Sonoma County, and we are here for the third event of the Pirelli GT4 America Sprint season, and this is set up for round 6 of the Pirelli GT4 America Sprint Championship this weekend, presented and sponsored by the fine folks at CrowdStrike. Hi, everybody. Great to have you with us. I'm Greg Creamer, joined as always by Calvin Fish, Ryan Marine down trackside. And a look there at the absolutely beautiful Porsche from TRG, the LaSalle Solutions entry of Spencer Pumpelly. And Cal, this weekend, much like VIR, triple header weekend, as we have another makeup race that we're going to be doing on Sunday, we talked at VIR about the fact that 3 races in a weekend could have a big impact, either positively or negatively, on championship aspirations. On Friday, it sure looked like it was going to be a big weekend for Spencer.
It did. Spencer had the pace. He had the pole position. He took that pace to the first victory of the weekend. It looked like Michael Cooper was in trouble. Technical issues with his McLaren, but boy, did that team respond. They came back to sweep the rest of the weekend, and the outcome was, whereas you thought Spencer was going to make up a boatload of points, he only made up 1 point, so that championship right now is still super tight, only 9 points between the drivers.
And they are continuing where they left off, essentially, here in qualifying. Awfully close with Spencer Pumpelly on the pole, and did that by about 3.5 tenths over Michael Cooper. Drew Stavely, a great run in the Ford Mustang from his great team here that has him sitting in the 3rd spot. And then 4th overall in qualifying, the guy who has been absolutely on fire in the AM category, Cal, Michael Dinan. And just to make that even sweeter for him, it's the team's home base.
It is. Flying Lizard Motorsports put together a great program for Michael, and this switch to the Aston Martin Vantage GT4 car over the offseason has paid dividends. 4 out of 5 victories for Michael right now. His confidence is high, and you can see it the way he's driving. He's making smart moves. He's being patient, and he's getting the rewards and the results.
And there you see there's a little confusion. We had that car as black a couple of times at VIR, but in this California sunlight, you can see that beautiful blue on that machine as he sits right behind Michael Cooper there. And there is Drew Stavely, of course, last year's AM champion. He's moved up to pro this year. It didn't take him long to prove that he resoundingly belonged, had a win at the opening round at Circuit of the Americas as well. And here's a guy who's made the step up from the touring car class into the sprint category for Pirelli GT4 America. That's Paul Terry in the Paul Terry Trucking Reardon Racing, and going to the Aston Martin, and he too has been very quick.
He has. One thing we noticed at VIR, they seem to be struggling a bit in terms of straightaway speed, so I'm not sure if they've rectified that here for this weekend, but a nice top 6 qualifying run for Paul. He'll line up right behind Michael on row 3, and in between them, Jared Andretti. A little bit disappointing, I think, after his qualifying run. He'd been right at the sharp end in practice, but quite a ways off the front runners. I would assume that there's some kind of issue with that Andretti Autosport McLaren, and they'll be in a little bit of shape. But you know he gets up on the wheel early, Greg, so expect him to try and get around Dinan here in the opening few corners.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got a little different graphic package on the car. This is a special weekend as they are really promoting the Checkered for Andretti and Military Motorsports connection. We'll talk a little bit more about that on that endurance warranty McLaren as the signal is given to get this field fired up and get ready for this 6th round of the championship. And as you can see, nobody in the stands. This event, like VAR, being held without any fans, and of course we missed that energy to be sure, but we're also very fortunate to be here. And once again, this series, along with the venue itself and all of the teams and partners, really following the protocols that have allowed us to come out and be able to attend and actively race on these weekends with social distances, mask wearing, and the like. They've really done a great job. Event Check is a really interesting innovation in terms of a social distancing cloud-based platform based on your credential. Just a lot of stuff that's happening right now as we take a look at the field as they head out 2 pace laps, and you take a look at that starting lineup. We've talked about that top group there in that top 4, with Dinan having that great run, then Andretti, Paul Terry. Then you take a look, nice to see Mark Clennon having a really good run in qualifying in that Sin R1.
Yeah, and he's another one who's made a move in the offseason to a different chassis and platform, and has certainly shown its dividends. That's really a strong run for Mark there to line up 3rd in his class and 7th overall, and beside him will be Jeff Burton, who loves this racetrack.
Yes,
had a lot of success here over the years with Reardon Racing.
And there's Jason Bell, who is continuing his Ironman duties, running, I think it's again 8 different races, isn't it, over the course of the weekend?
Yeah, and it's a big weekend for GMG Racing. 8 cars they have entered here this weekend. That is amazing. I think they ran 7 cars back in 2013, so they're pipping their own record even here this weekend.
Yeah, that 7 cars, as you said, was a record, and they're breaking it now. And there's Jason, who's going to be very, very busy. And obviously, this event over the years, we've seen just incredibly high, mid-90s to higher temperatures here in the valley. Very nice, really, right now. So I'm sure Jason's going to be appreciating that he won't be cooking quite as much in that car.
Yeah, and I think another man who's going to be appreciating it is Spencer Pumpelly. We know that he's shown speed this year, and it seems like when it gets a little bit hotter, then maybe he doesn't have quite the delta in the gap to the rest of the field. So he'll enjoy these cooler temperatures. Spoke to both he and fellow front row starter Michael Cooper after their runs this morning, and both are very happy. Spencer said, we seem to be in good shape here. The home track, of course, for TRG, so they know it like the back of their hand. But Michael said, you know, we expect Spencer to be a little bit quicker on 1 lap pace, like in qualifying in cool conditions. That was very early this morning when they did their qualifying run. So he was expecting the car to come back to him a little bit in race conditions, but the fact that the ambient hasn't screamed up, maybe that minimizes that gap.
That's a very good point. And let's get the perspective of what's unfolding down in pit lane. Ryan?
Hi, Greg. Hi, Cal. Tires, always a big topic here at Sonoma Raceway. The nature of this surface, so abrasive, and I think that's led to an interesting split in tire strategy. I was taking a walk around the grid, and I noticed a lot of the cars are out there starting on scuffed tires. Drew Stavely in particular told me that was part of their strategy. But the 2 McLarens starting towards the front, both Michael Cooper and Jared Andretti, they are on sticker tires. So that could be something to keep an eye on. We talked a little bit off-air, guys, about the pace of the Porsche, especially over a single lap, but perhaps those McLarens might have something over a longer stint, and that might be what they have in mind starting the race on a fresh set of stickers.
Yeah, it's a very, very good point, and you've got to play that strategy. I mean, tire life, as he said at this track, is just massively critical.
Yeah, Michael just said it's pretty abrasive. Spencer said the same thing, and Spencer said, I'm actually having to change the lines, the racing line that he's driving around this racetrack as he gets that tire degradation. He said it's all about getting the car straight to accelerate off the lower speed corners. He said rear tire grip, traction, power down is going to be key to victory here today. He said, I need to get the jump on Michael at the start, then control that pace, and hopefully be able to control those lines and just make sure he doesn't abuse those rear tires.
So much to be thinking about here as they are getting ready to complete their final pace lap, and we will be getting the green flag here, hopefully, and be going racing. Of course, this is sprint, so it is single driver, 50-minute sprint race. Everybody just gets after it, gets the job done. But as we said, on a track like this, it's not like you can just drop the hammer for 50 minutes. You've got to manage things a bit. Talk a little bit about this track, Cal. You know, using the classic configuration, if you will, with the one change where you come out of the S's, instead of making that bend through what used to be turn 9, you now go right here, you skip that turn in and go to this tight right-left situation before turn 10.
Yeah, I personally prefer the old layout in terms of the challenge, but I like this one because it creates another overtaking opportunity as well. And I like the fact that we're taking the longer run down into turn 11 as opposed to taking that shortcut there. That creates a lot more speed as you get into there and creates a good overtaking zone as well to finish off the lap.
Lights out on the Acura SX, the official safety vehicle of the series, and now it is up to Spencer Pumpelly to lead this field around. As you said, this long run into turn 11. And a lot of times people think that's the last turn, but it's technically there's a little bend to the left. That's turn 12. And then we look for that green flag, and everybody queuing up pretty smartly right now. Puff of smoke there. All right, here we go. Through that little turn 12, bend to the left. And the green flag flies. We are racing, and this is going to be huge. Cooper's going to try and do something up around the outside. Cal, side by side. Cooper knifes across in front.
Watch
Parks
Stavely.
Pumpelly. And looks like everybody just suddenly checked up.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was waved off potentially.
Yeah. We're seeing
Back
green showing on the...
Would have to think that
screens,
maybe
yeah.
there was a wave off there.
I think so too.
Spencer got the jump, and then Michael really rode around the outside. And the problem for that is that now Spencer's going to expect that move, and we'll have to come up with a different strategy to get around it, because that's exactly what he didn't want to have to happen. He talked about getting to the front early, managing the pace, managing his racing lines, and he can't afford a cut and paste of that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the clock starts to tick away, so Being a timed event, that continues to run, but I guess we'll see what happens here on start number 2. And we'll see if they actually form up here. Now watch it here, Cal. I did not see a green flag fly. I'm not sure exactly why, because I thought they were fairly well queued up, but the starter obviously has eyes right on top of that field.
I've seen a lot worse get a green flag, so just trying to keep everyone even there. Maybe they felt Spencer had got a bit of a jump from the pole and wanted to have another reset. Even with the jump, unless he was aware, I mean, unless that move by Michael was because Spencer heard on his radio or saw the fact that the green didn't wave, maybe Michael would not have been able to make that move if we were green.
You've got to suspect that might be the case, obviously, or so. We get to do it once again here as this field works through turn 9, 9A. Heading up into turn 10.
Watch for Andretti for row 3. He's got to try and get around Michael Dinan here, running in different classes, of course. Got the pros and the AMs with Dinan on the AM pole, sitting in the 4th position in that kind of midnight dark blue colored Aston Martin. Second in line, screen left as we're looking there.
And that big greenhouse of that Ford Mustang, but believe you me, it is a quick machine here. This crew has already made happen here this year with a win and a great qualifying run here. Okay, all right, here we come. Here's that little kink, turn 12. Once again, let's see. They look awfully well lined up at this point. See, there's the green. We are underway. And again, Cooper gets a great run. Is he going to be able to make it happen again? Almost a touch. He dips the brake. They're still side by side. Finally, he tucks in.
Woo.
Oh, that was close. He's going to swing the outside up at the top of the hill through turn 2. Can he make this work, Cal? He may have done it.
And he's on those fresh Pirelli P0s, as Ryan alluded to, so he recognized also Spencer wanted to get the lead. Oh, a little love tap there from Drew Stavely as they came through turn 3 there. He looks to the inside. Pumpelly feeling the pressure here on the opening lap.
And look at who's sitting 4th. Exactly what you were talking about, Checkered Andretti.
Well, he's used to 10-minute sprint car races, so he knows you have to get up on the wheel early. So Spencer Pumpelly trying to regroup here. The key was starting on those sticker tires. Will they go off a little bit more than the scrub tires that Spencer has started on?
That's a very good point. All right. Boy, what a move by Cooper, though. No question about that. Down through turn 7, and here's 7A. It's a couple of different configurations you can run at that hairpin on the end of the track. This one opens it up just a little bit more.
I'll tell you what, as they came through that high-speed turn 1 and they made the cut across, I mean, you couldn't have fit a piece of paper, I wouldn't think, between the tail of Pumpelly's Porsche and the nose of that McLaren. It was beautiful driving by both of them, and then side by side up into turn 2, and that gave Michael the inside line for turn 3 and got him the lead.
In the background, Clennon had a great start, jumped to 3rd in class. Just saw him get crossed up at 9 and 9A, but was able to save it, and Terry was not able to get through. There's Clennon in that white with the orange trim, that Sin with the blue along the lower part of the car.
Two teammates there looking hard at each other. That's Jeff Burton in the silver Aston Martin running behind Paul Terry. You see Sean Quinlan starting to put pressure on both of those.
Quinlan, of course, running for Steve Cameron Racing, another team that's based out here on the West Coast and would consider this a home race this year for sure. And then Frank Gannett, and then Jason. Having a little bit of a Jason Bell for GMG Racing at the back a little bit.
You have to wonder, I mean, sometimes seat time can be a great thing, but when you jump between different race cars, it's always an adjustment, particularly here at this race circuit. I mean, a lot of these corners with this elevation change, the car never really wants to have a set, Greg. You have to really finesse it up and through these corners. See a slightly different line there into the carousel from Spencer Pumpelly running 2nd to our leader. Cooper running that very wide, classic turn-in position there.
Boy, and right as you turn in, as we watch Pumpelly almost drop his right rear at the exit of the carousel, as you turn into the carousel, there's a pretty good bump there if you stay too tight to the inside. Looks like everybody is doing everything they can to avoid that.
Andretti in there super deep to the first part of turn 7. Now you wind up here, trying to find some speed here to catch the tail of Drew Stavely. Stavely got off to the season with a dramatic win at Circuit of the Americas. Probably felt he should have swept that weekend, but let one get away from him there. And then this car didn't seem to be quite as suited at VIR. So again, you said these triple header weekends, you can lose a bundle just like Drew did to Michael and Spencer that weekend.
That's true. I mean, the car I don't think was perfect for VIR. And then remember early in that, in one of the races, he ran wide and ripped the whole diffuser and rear deck off the back of that car.
Terry to the inside, that is tight.
Ooh, a touch.
Wow. I thought there was going to be contact between those as Jeff Burton runs a little bit wide right behind them.
Yeah, Terry is up on the wheel early, swinging to the inside now, trying to get something done down into turn 1.
Such a difficult part of the racetrack to make a move. Transitioning across there, the road just takes the grip away from you. It gets really light as you crest these hills. You get the big compression here as you're on the brakes, you dab the brakes, and then you turn in. Oh, he opens up the door and Terry takes it.
Looks like he may be having, and I'm talking about Clennon there, a little problem. The car just does not seem to want to accelerate out of the corners very well. I wonder if he's having a little issue. But Terry is through, and now Burton and Quinlan will up the attack.
Terry's taken off, so Mark Clennon just trying to regroup here a little bit after that little bobble. I'm not sure if there was a technical issue or whether he just missed something there coming off of turn 2, but opened up the door nicely for Terry, who was obviously eager and ready to pounce. He was already starting to look pretty aggressive there and trying to make a move.
So that moves Terry up to 6th overall, 2nd in class at this stage. There's Jeff Burton, who had in a superb weekend here last year, particularly in the Western Am Sprint X category with Vesko Kozarov, who gave him a car that was in the lead, and Burton had to survive a late race restart. Did a brilliant job to hang on for an overall win. So this is a track he's got fond memories of.
Yeah, and that just gives you confidence. And even though it's a different car this year, you come back.
Clennon a little wide, sorry.
It's like a golfer loving the golf course when you revisit it. Even if you got a new set of irons in your hand, you still feel you can operate and perform.
This is going to be a good little battle here again. This is for 3rd, 4th, 5th in the AM category right now.
At turn 11, you really have to hug the inside. If you get just a few feet off that apex, it seems like you struggle for grip there and lose a little bit of ground. If you can get that right side tire up on the curve, it just seems to really tidy it up and give you the bite and the traction off.
Right here is where Clennon, the car laid down just a little bit on that last lap. So he was able to get through okay that time. There's a look at Sean. Had a pretty big incident in the one of the sprint races, the Saturday race at VIR, and ended up as a result missing the race on Sunday. Checked in with him as well. He said, yeah, he said, it took a couple of days for me to feel completely okay. After that, he said, but I feel now, and he said, I'm looking forward to this one. I love this track.
Yeah, it's nice to come to a track where, you know, your team has a lot of knowledge and really understands the track and understand the grip levels that it will provide. And as we said, pretty cool day here for August. We didn't expect to see these sort of temperatures when we arrived.
You heard me inhale a breath there as they came through the carousel. It looked like Clennon's car, the back end stepped out. He had a little drift down the hill.
Well, the one thing that the Sin does not have is so many electronic aids as the cars that we drove previously. So we felt that was kind of masking Mark having to really drive the car correctly, and you take those away, it kind of puts you back in the hands of the driver in terms of making it happen, and they really feel he's starting to come around now.
There's a look at Jared Andretti running 4th in class and overall right now. We talked about that new livery, and you see that Checkered for Andretti, and that basically pays homage to Jared's father, John Andretti, who passed away in January after a long battle with colon cancer. It was a movement that began in 2017 basically as an awareness campaign started by John Andretti to bring attention to the importance of early colon cancer screenings, and it's something very near and dear to that family, obviously. And then Military to Motorsports, founded by a former Navy SEAL named David Tilton, and it basically helps veterans find opportunities to utilize their unique skill set in possible careers in the motorsports industry, and very special for them as well. So they're really flying those colors this weekend.
They are, and hats off to them. It's two wonderful programs. Great to see Jarrett's really remarkable transition to road racing and how successful he's been here in World Challenge over the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, he's just.
Ooh, that was a big save.
That was.
That was a big save. That was almost out in the dirt there. He did really well to just gather it all back up and not try and drive through that.
Well, I almost wonder after that moment where the car was sideways down near the exit if he was trying to diamond it a little bit so he could square it up and straighten it out a little bit coming down the hill, but it's just too much rotation, and I think maybe he got a little bit too wide, and that track out on the outside there's a little dusty, isn't it?
I wonder if he's got some kind of technical issue, like maybe it's not shifting correctly, so maybe he's going into some of these corners with not in the right gear or not getting the right gear selection. You notice how he didn't accelerate off of turn 2, Greg, when Terry made that move, so it could be something like that that's hampering his progress right now.
As we're watching Michael Cooper out front leading away, let's get down to the pits, Ryan.
Well, one thing that we're all very happy about this weekend is the return of Tony Gaples to the racetrack. He, of course, missed the race weekend at VIR due to an eye condition. Actually had to have some eye surgery, and he was hoping to be back in the race car here at Sonoma. Unfortunately, that wasn't quite in the cards, so he is here still supporting the team with aspirations of being back for the next round at Road America. I talked with Tony and asked, was it harder to be away from the racetrack and not in the race car, or here this weekend and not being able to get in the race car? And he said, oh, hands down, not being there at all at VIR was really, really tough. He said he got to the end of the weekend and finally put it all together why he just wasn't feeling quite like himself. He said, oh, yeah, it was probably that, meaning not being at the racetrack. So he's definitely a racer. It was the first time in his professional racing career that he missed a whole weekend, and I know he is just chomping at the bit to get back behind the wheel of one of these McLarens.
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean, this is a track where he's had a lot of success over the years, both in the GT4 category, where he's had class wins, and also I think it was here he had a second overall in GT in that Howling Corvette that they used to run. So this place means a lot to Tony Gable.
Yeah, he also had a big hit right here coming through the S's a couple of years ago too, but I understand he had to do some follow-up surgery, and it takes about 6 weeks. The G-forces in the race car is not ideal when you're trying to recover from pretty serious eye surgery that Tony's been going through, but obviously the target now is his home circuit, Road America here at the end of the month.
Yeah, I think it'll take chains and demons to keep him away from Road America. Behind the wheel of that car as we're watching Drew Stavely work that beautiful Ian Lacey G3 Racing Mustang through the twisty bits here at Sonoma. There's Jarrett once again as he's hustling that beautiful machine. Again, what a start he put together. A lot of support as well, of course, for the team from Endurance Warranty and Window World and Michigan Windows and Doors. So there is Dynan leading in the AM category once again, and he has just been a rocket ship in the AM class this year. You take a look at the stats that he's put up in that category this year. It's mighty impressive what we've seen Michael Dynan do. I mean, basically, he swept the weekend at VIR, had another win and his second. He's only had one finish out of the top 3, and that was 4th.
Yeah, and not just his speed, but I think his racecraft and his patience and letting races come to him a little bit is really wonderful to see. I mean, he's got great tutelage with Robbie Foley, who he shares a car with in Sprint X, of course, and he's got a great team around him. I mean, Flying Lizard and the whole Capex group are tremendous, the experience they have on that group. So I think he was finding his feet last year, had a few little mistakes, but this year just solid as a rock.
Yeah, he has been mega impressive, and that was the line Mark's been searching for that sin through the carousel. A really good run. But boy, I'll tell you right now, Quinlan, every lap he just seems to be a little bit closer, a little bit more up on it here.
Yeah, and as we start to get a little bit more tire degradation, Ryan alluded to the fact it's super aggressive here. The asphalt here is really very coarse, so it's almost like Torna Spencer Pompelli said, it's like a cheese grater on the tires. You've really got to manage those tires. So as we get a little bit of tire degradation as this 50-minute race wears on, I think we may start to see some people try and make a move in turn 7. That long sweeping is kind of the longer way around turn 7. If you're struggling for grip there, you may see people suddenly try to dive down into turn 7A, as we call it, the second part of that long duration, low speed corner.
So you're saying somebody that can't quite get it turned in and stay on line in 7, you can get somebody jumping up the inside.
Yeah, if you're suddenly able to just sort of like pinch your hands a little bit, typically you're going to lose the grip. But if you've got the grip there to just dart to the inside, you can maybe surprise someone later in the run.
And there's plenty of later yet to unfold here. Just under 35 minutes still to go. I'll tell you, unless you've been on the side of the track through the exit of 1 up into 2, you really don't appreciate just how fast the cars are coming through 1 and up that hill. They are flying.
They really are, and it's really hard to see and pick out your line visually. You're looking up and over the dashboard and the cars pointing at the sky, so to pick your line through there, I found it personally very difficult to do and get the line exactly right. Obviously, there's a lot of drivers in this series now have a bundle of laps around here, and you eventually sort it out. But elevation change really increases the challenge of driving a circuit.
Well, especially when a lot of your apexes are basically right at the crown of the hill. You know, I mean, you're dealing with that at 2 and 3A, and 3A is one of those, if you're not absolutely perfect coming out of 3A, and look at Quinlan, he's going to try and ramp that outside. He got in really hot. Clennon trying to keep it pinched down like you talked about. But, boy, Quinlan able to just utilize that line, just flowed more speed, Cal. And that really has slowed up Clennon coming out of the Turn 7A complex.
Yeah, Ryan supposedly checked in with the team. They say no real technical issue with the Sin in terms of any transmission or electronic issues. So I was just surprised there that Mark kind of let him have his way there. And now Frank Gannett gets down to the inside. Nice clean move there in the second of the Ian Lacey Racing G3 cars. And now here comes Jason Bell. So Clennon in trouble, really struggling now for speed.
Tried to get the power down, but he was off line in 9A, and you can see the back end rotated around, and there's nothing there, and Bell able to just out-drag him. That was a tough lap for Mark. That was looking so good.
Yeah, I just have to feel there's something going on to drop that much pace. I mean, typically if the tires are starting to go away or something, you may lose 2 or 3 tenths. It seemed like Mark has lost a couple of seconds here on this lap.
Yeah, difficult one for him for sure.
I mean, he just ran a lap. I know he was passing stuff for 155. His best is 149.2. So I have to wait and see if he can get back in a rhythm and find some pace once again. But it was a great qualifying performance up in position 3 in class.
It was superb. And I mean, he had, at the start, he actually had worked his way into second briefly. So yeah, you've got to believe something has gone adrift for him there. There is Paul Terry, who now sits in the second spot. Problem for him is he's now 4 seconds adrift of Dynan. And he's actually run his best lap was a tick quicker than Dynan.
Yeah, and the last lap was about half a second quicker, so there's a lot of time on the board. So, you know, maybe Michael Dynan is just managing his pace, making sure he's got some tires. If you get a reset, you want to have something to use at the end, certainly. And we'll have to see, now that Terry's on the charge a little bit, whether Michael digs a bit deeper and tries to take a bit more performance out of the tires.
And do keep in mind that second place that Dynan had at Circuit of the Americas, it was to Paul Terry.
Right.
So he certainly is capable of it here.
It's been an Aston Martin sweep of the AM class this year.
Hasn't it? Here's a good look at Frank Gannett, second of the drivers in the Ian Lacey G3 Racing Mustang program.
Jason fell there really deep on the brakes into turn 9. Couldn't quite keep the front underneath him now and washed a little bit wide through the first apex and through the transition. Michael Cooper now has extended that lead on Pampelli up to 2.7 seconds. This is exactly not the picture that Spencer envisioned after qualifying, where he had the pace by 3.5 tenths. So again, Michael starting on those fresh sticker tires. Let's see halfway through here. We're still got 30 minutes to go. We're 5 minutes from the halfway point, whether he'll start to fade back to Spencer a little bit, who started on scuffs.
Working his way down into the carousel is Spencer in that LaSalle Solutions Team TRG Porsche.
See Spencer there, he runs a little bit more shallow entry there. Just carry a little bit more speed in. If you do that high arc in, right as you're turning, you're kind of going over the crest of the hill, and the car feels a little bit, you know, a little bit light as you're trying to find grip to turn in and attack the corner. So it seems like Spencer likes to attack that on a slightly shallower angle, maybe take a bit more speed in, and then get it more slowed down in the middle of the corner, and then regroup for the second half of the carousel.
Some of that maybe what you were just talking about. You go over that little bump right as you're loaded and the car feels light. Well, you've got the lump right over those rear wheels. That's a big pendulum swing in the back. Is that one of the reasons you might shallow that a little bit to try and keep that from pivoting around?
Certainly can be, and also, you know, Spencer's talked a lot about what he needs to do with that car in terms of the lines he chooses to try and manage the tires a little bit more. So all can be a factor here, and you know this, it's a real jigsaw puzzle to get around this racetrack and also get through 50 minutes of racing with the best performance and most efficiency out of those tires.
That's pretty much true. I mean, in a lot of ways, when you think of the term technical, this track defines it, doesn't it?
It does. I think you need so much finesse around here. I mean, I just feel, conversely, I mean, Michael Cooper is leading this race, and I feel I can attack this course. Well, to me, I feel that you've got to really finesse your way through, particularly through those elevation corners of up through 1, 2, and 3. You know, if you start attacking it and the car's light, it's very easy to overheat those tires.
Probably fun.
Yeah.
Real fun, you know, to be able to just float the car until you just scrub every bit of grip right off of those tires, for sure. Jason Bell's feeling it right now, is starting to take a few runs at Gannett. And to overslow there, does Clennon have anything? Not quite close enough.
He's regrouped, though.
He has. He has. And that Premier Copier Sin.
Yeah, I mean, he's back down to the 150 range, which is right in his window of what he's been running this race. So it's a great little battle, though. I mean, Frank Gannett has really come on awfully strong from a driver who really had very little experience, and under the tutelage of Ian Lacey and certainly Drew Stavely, has come a long ways in a very short space of time.
Yeah, he definitely has. They've been a great addition to the championship. Started off a few years ago racing in Ginettas, but they had been very involved and spent a lot of time. Stavely, in fact, an instructor for the Ford Performance Program. It was then Miller Motorsports Park, and oh, that was a very savvy bit of driving, I think, by Gannett, as he saw Bell knifing down the inside. And look at Clennon trying to come back. I think Gannett saw Bell coming down the inside and just opened the wheel up. Otherwise, there could have been some contact. And Bell checked up to avoid it, and that gave Clennon an opportunity. So good awareness there in the track by Frank.
Well, it's such a unique corner. You need to really flow speed through there, and if you're suddenly into that racing dynamic, it's very hard to pick up the throttle and get back with it. So by Frank just opening up his hands, rolling a bit more speed, hard for Jason to chase the throttle and be back with him.
Clennon now sensing maybe some opportunity here. One thing I've said many times about that Mustang, you know exactly when those drivers go to throttle.
It's pretty talky, more ways than one.
Here's that quick section up through 1.
And just lining the car up right to get to this apex, not carry too much speed, and doesn't look like it from the high cam, but when you're behind the wheel, there's a ton of elevation change there, and just seeing the edge of the road as you float through turn 2 is really hard, very easy to float out wide.
And there's that turn 3A, which if you don't get it right on the slow side, you're really slow, and if you don't get it right on the over fast side, you're off the track. It is a tricky piece of real estate. Here's Drew Stavely, number 12. He's been impressive to watch over the years and see him step it up, and now ends up in the pro category.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, okay, I need to learn this and get up to speed. He was bang. He was on at first pro race. He won to open up this championship season. So that was certainly making a statement. And you could tell that when he didn't win on Sunday, the second race there, he was disappointed. He really felt that they could have swept that weekend. So, but his last lap, we'll have to see what they do across the stripe this time. But his last lap was 7/10 quicker than Pumpelli. So we'll have to wait and see if he's going to eat into that lead even more. It was 2.5 seconds forward, just 2.4, so that's been minimized on this last lap. All three leaders running lap times within 0.2 of one another.
Yeah, incredibly close. What I was going to say about Gannett and Stavely, you know, they had this long association. Stavely as an instructor, Gannett as a student at that Ford Performance School at then Miller Motorsports Park. And they were racing Ginettas, and then when Ford created the GT4 Mustang, they went, well, that was a no-brainer for us, because that took us back into our comfort zone in this Mustang, and they both are just enjoying it immensely.
Yeah, it's just a great fit. So back more to their roots. And Frank has done a really nice job, and Stavely here is trying to chase down those two leaders. Still a long ways to go. We're just past the halfway point in this race, and we've got an equally fierce battle right here between Gannett, Bell, and Clennon, who's recovered nicely. He's just got back into that rhythm, had a little bit of a reset. He's just having a bad lap there, and something seemed to be amiss. So if it isn't a technical issue, he just needed to get his own self sorted out there a little bit. See what happens down here, down into that turn 7 brake zone. We're seeing Jason think about making a move down here.
Yeah, pretty aggressive on the brakes for sure. A little bit too far back. Boy, he closes it up a lot under the brakes, though. Porsche's somewhat renowned for having pretty solid braking.
Yeah, that's for sure. But, you know, by swinging out a little bit wide, I think it gets Frank through the combination of both the corners maybe a little bit more effectively. Certainly, Jason has taken time out from him into the brake zone there, but by running that slightly shallower angle, it means he has a lot more steering as they go through the mid part of that corner.
Well, each car obviously is different, likes different things, and I mean, you've got to give the car what it likes to a certain degree, don't you, to maintain your speed. Now, if you have a wide line through somewhere and the guy's really close behind you, you're not going to open it up and let him just throw it down the inside. But if he's not that close, that's why we see different lines for a lot of these different machines.
Different lines, even if as the race progresses or the tire life gets a little bit different. You know what I mean? I'm talking to Mike Carl, who's a manager at Chip Ganassi Racing. He talks about Scott Dixon. They'll ask him what the car's doing. He said, it's no problem. I'm just adjusting myself. So he changes his line to suit what the tire will give him through the course of a stint.
Sometimes you just have to adapt.
You do. There's just not one ticket to every station. You know, you've got to really try and figure things out, and you can't just say, oh, the car's not giving it to me right now. Nothing they can do unless you come into the pits and do a stop. So when you're in the middle of the race, sort it out yourself, make some subtle adjustments, work with some of the tools in the car, and adjust your lines and just try and finesse it through the course of the stint.
And every once in a while, especially if you have a car that's got a little damage on it, you just have to pick the thing up and grab it by the scruff and muscle your way around and do what you have to do here. And right now, Dynan has been able to keep that margin pretty consistent now back to Terry.
Yeah, certainly under no pressure whatsoever. And as you mentioned, Greg, Terry just has a marginally faster lap than Dynan on the board, so that could be a factor for tomorrow as the grid is set by fastest laps.
Yep, very good point. Right now, Cooper would be on pole, and by a fair chunk at this stage, 4/10 his fastest lap.
Yeah, and there's talking to the drivers, they just said with the aggressive nature of this race surface, there's a big drop-off. Like you're going to see a 2-second plus drop-off between your prime lap and then from lap 4-5 on for the rest of the race, and then it kind of stabilizes. So looking at Cooper's best lap was a 46.8 on those sticker tires early. Now he and the rest of the gang are running high 49, so some 3 seconds off what we saw earlier in the race. So think about that in terms of rolling speed. I mean, 3 seconds in racing is an eternity to be, you know, that far different in pace from the start of the run to now.
Yeah, and it's not the Pirelli P0s, it's the track. It's so aggressive and abrasive.
It's like taking a bar of soap with a cheese grater and you're just, you know, going through the tread, and then as you get the tread a little bit thinner, then it has more of a tendency to overheat more, even in these remarkably cool conditions for the month of August.
And all the stuff that comes off of that cheese grater is what creates the marbles.
That's right. Clag, as Mr. Hobbs.
Exactly, which can mess you up when you get a lot of it on your tires. So Glennon hustling that Premier copier. KPR Sin hanging right in there. Can't figure out a way to get by Gannett.
Yeah, but Jason, there's been a change of position there. So Glennon's got around Bell, and Jason is now playing catch up.
This is in the 9.9A. Oh, and he got in a little too hot.
Yeah, I'd seen him once before when he was in the battle there, just take a lot of speed in there and just couldn't get the car turned in the middle part of the corner.
And that's a part of the track that they are really watching, I think, in terms of what they call track limits. Because you could turn in, same thing again, and if you decide to cut through behind that curbing, you can actually get penalized. And so it looks awfully harsh, but it's better to almost stop and get yourself onto that curb, but that in itself costs you a lot of time.
For our championship leader, this is a pretty dominant performance. He seemed pretty cool, calm, and collected when I spoke to him after being beaten to the pole by Spencer by 3/10 plus, and he still felt very confident. And he had a plan, he stuck to it. And even though Spencer kind of retaliated on that restart after the first wave off, Michael just said, no problem, I'll go the long way around, cut it to the lead, made use of those new tires, and just continues to run lap times. You know, good, almost a second quicker than Spencer on that last lap, which I'm finding somewhat surprising, to be honest with you.
Talking with those stickers, because they do tend to fall off a little bit more, right, if they're not scuffed?
Yes, you're typically going to get a bit more pressure build, and they're going to tend to peak a little bit more.
And Jared just has not been able to hang with those three up front. He's faded a bit, but very comfortable in fourth in class right now.
Yeah, just doesn't seem to have found the edge today, and the speed in that McLaren. So, you know, we've been seen to be such a force in this class over the last 18 months. And, you know, he's running third in class, but fourth in class, should I say. But we just expect him to be right there battling for the win.
Dynan has got that margin to Andretti. It's not a class battle, but it is overall. There's Andretti, and Dynan is now got that margin down to almost exactly 2 seconds. And it doesn't really affect you in terms of points. In the past, sometimes the pros were scored on an overall. I think now it's just all class related.
Yeah, and I think the key for Michael Dynan is he's got a nice little gap to Andretti. Certainly Andretti is not hindering his progress any at this stage of the game, and he's got a bit of breathing room back to Paul Terry. So he's found a nice sweet spot in terms of the track position within the race, and just got to keep ticking off the laps and try to bring home another victory here. If Terry was a little bit closer and he had to start to push, then it gets a weird dynamic when you got the leader of a class suddenly trying to get around a car that's not in the same class, and that's where it can get a little bit messy. But look at this, Mark Clennon has definitely regrouped. He's now right on the tail of Frank Annette.
Up and over that rise, falling down into the carousel. And that time Clennon just had it tight to the inside all the way around the carousel, didn't he? A little wiggle there.
A little wiggle
and
there.
Again.
A little slide there. I think it's all about just being really smooth with that throttle application. You can't afford to make it an on-off switch. You just got to squeeze it through there. So you come down the hill, the radius starts to open up, but the road is still falling away from you. So there's a tendency to chase that throttle a little too aggressively, particularly late in the run.
Big slide there. I don't know if he caught that curb.
I think that's the key. Just try and balance things out here a little bit with your hands and your feet, and just make sure you're not overdriving those tires. Gannett looks pretty tidy through there. There's an ebb and flow to this. A gap keeps going backwards and forwards, but I think just as Mark gets close to Frank, he starts to overdrive the car a little bit, and you see what it does to the gap. It opens up immediately.
It seems like just on a free lap, Mark's a little bit quicker because he's been able to run him down a couple of times. Yeah,
exactly.
But that's the thing is, if you jump on the throttle just a little too aggressively, as opposed to just getting the weight back and giving you grip, you can snap the back end out.
Another fun part of the racetrack. You dip down and then you turn in, and just as you think the car's not responding, you get the compression with the hill and the elevation change picking up grip. You come up over the other side, it goes away again. It seems like the contact patch is never standing still on this race circuit.
And when you watch guys really hustling the car up over 3A, it just almost takes your breath away every time, because if they're on that exit curb on the left side and you run over that, there's not a lot of room between that curb and there's a barrier up there, but you gotta hustle it.
Yes, Mark was certainly hustling there. You could see him coming off the carousel. Just opened up his hands nicely, created that nice big radius coming off really close to the edge of the road, but that would have been good speed through there that time. So I think when he just smooths things out a little bit, he'll see the benefit in a lap time and close that gap again.
Well, one of the things I'm wondering here with that Sin, I mean, it's a you know, almost prototypical in its look and the like, and that Mustang, it looks like that Mustang is really good over the curbs. It's got a lot of compliance and the like, and it looks like that Sin, you get the curve, it upsets it just a bit more, partly because it's a lot lighter, I think.
Yes, I think the Mustang's a really good car. You think of it just being a muscle car like point and squirt, but it really isn't. I mean, with the GT4 car that they've built, there's a lot of downforce built into that car. It's really good into the brake zones, really good through the corners, and they got the suspension sorted out as well to, as you say, ride the curbs a little bit and have that compliancy that you need.
All right, just under 14 minutes remaining as we're continuing to watch this great battle between the G3 Ian Lacy Racing Mustang of Gannett and the Sin R1, the premier copy entry of Mark Clennon. I'll tell you, Mark has been a long-time competitor in World Challenge Racing. I think I said this at VIR. I've never, no matter where he finishes, no matter what he does,
He loves it.
he's got this big smile on his face. He's going, hey, I'm driving a race car in a Pro Series,
Yeah.
man. I'm loving this.
He puts it all in great perspective.
He
you know
does.
what I mean? It's, he knows it's all about personal performance and, you know, working with the team, getting the car to work for you. But, I mean, he realizes that it's all about him being disciplined, hitting his marks and executing. And I think he gets a lot of satisfaction out of that. And, you know, when you're dealing with the amateur drivers, they run businesses. Do you know what I mean? I like to relate it. They got more seat time in the boardroom than they do behind the wheel. Do you know what I mean? So this isn't how they earn a living. So they want to come here, have fun, enjoy the experience, and just try and improve.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. I've actually talked to Mark after he's had a tough race or whatever, and I said, boy, you got to be frustrated. And he goes, I don't care.
Yeah.
I get to start the car up and go race it tomorrow. I'm fine. And I think that's just a perfect way to go about it. And if you have a good run, that's just the icing on the cake. Now, for a factory driver like Michael Cooper, bit of a different story.
It is, and I'm shocked actually of how he's been able to put this race away. I mean, it seemed like he had a game plan and he just made it happen and got to the front and then just as successfully increased that lead, it seems, every single lap. And, you know, now a healthy 4-second lead. I don't see Spencer coming back at him in the late going. It doesn't seem like Michael's car has really gone off at all in terms of its performance. So it could be a tough one for Spencer here today. And when you're talking about such a small, compact, I mean, it's a very intense, very competitive 4-car pro field here.
Right.
You know, it's tough to make up those points, and there's a big swing between first and second. So when you start to see that, you know, 8-point delta between first and second, that is a big, big day when you're running in close proximity coming in here this weekend in the points.
And just looking at it, the last lap, actually, Stavely ran about half a second faster than Pumpelly did. So Brian, looks like Drew Stavely late in the going might have himself a weapon.
I'll tell you what, I think he would be surprised by this development because in our pre-race chat, he told me he felt of the cars in his class, the Mustang was going to be the hardest on tires over a long run. And what we've seen is quite the opposite. He really seems to be coming into his own, and he's going to be an asset, I think, for Michael Cooper and the Black Dog team because as much as Spencer would like to track down Michael, he's going to have his hands full with Drew before too much longer here. So interesting development that the Mustang seems to be a bit healthier on the tires than we were anticipating. And beyond that, I think maybe it goes back to the strategy call we talked about early in this race where they elected to go with the scuffs. And like you were talking about, Calvin, maybe that's helped him preserve those tires a little bit better.
Well, you have to work with the allocation you're given with, but you're allowed to use them how you want in GT4 now. You don't have to, like, start on the tires that you qualified with. So triple header weekend, maybe it will come back to Spencer in terms of what tires he'll have available for the other two races this weekend. I'll have to try and dig into that after the race today and see what the strategy is with everyone's tire allocation. But certainly it seemed like those new sticker tires on Michael's car and on Drew's car is paying a bit of a dividend over Spencer.
Yeah, it's interesting too, and this gets to what you were talking about. You know, people look at that Mustang, you hear that Mustang, and you think, oh, it's heavy and it's all about straight line grunt. Not in the GT4 platform, and obviously Drew is driving it beautifully and doing what he can. And we've seen Drew when he has to with this car. He just gets up on the wheel and he's drifting it through the corners, sliding it and all that. And he's just driving with great precision right now, just trying, obviously, to keep those tires underneath it.
Yeah, and it's that second sector where he's really, really strong. So that's where he's pulling out quite a bit of speed. And he pulled about half a second on Spencer in that sector alone. Very even through sector 1 and sector 3, but it's that middle sector is where Drew seems to be really getting the pace from.
That middle sector's start of the carousel to the exit of the S's, essentially, right?
Pretty much, yeah. It's just before you enter the carousel, all the way down into turn 7 and up through the S's, just before you get to the brake zone for turn 9.
Now that margin now is down to under 1.5 seconds, as we are down to just under 9 minutes remaining here in this 6th round of the championship.
But Spencer is savvy. I mean, he will have read the situation. He'll be been looking at the gap that's been developed by Michael up in front of him. And then his next factor is, okay, looks like the win is out of control right now. I've got to maximize the point score. What's Drew Stavely doing? And looking at the gap there. So one of the savviest drivers we have in the field, Spencer Montpellier, can be a great strategist as well as a race car driver. True. So he's going to be leaning on those skills as much as the driving skills right now to maintain this second position.
A little bit of a rotation right down there at the bottom of the carousel as he got to that exit curb. He's not just lazing about, that's for sure. He is hustling that LaSalle Solutions Team TRG entry. Support from Adobe Road Wines, the Racing Series wines.
Yeah, and it's a very different weekend. I mean, this is typically a huge celebration for Kevin Buckler and the whole group in terms of the people that they bring to entertain. They do great business-to-business operations with all of their partners, really give a great return on their investment. So without that, you have to get a little bit more innovative. I mean, Kevin's had some virtual wine tasting parties and things like that. He definitely has the ability to think out of the box and still return the investment to his sponsors and to his partners. He likes to call them partners because they really do just work together. It's not just putting the sticker on the race car for Kevin Buckler.
Oh, very true.
He wants to totally integrate you into everything.
And this is just a special venue for the Racers Group, the TRG team. This is where they made their debut as a pro team, where Kevin won on debut. His first pro race, and this has always been a very special place. They were based there for a lot of years as well, so this in many ways is home, and it's great to see them having such a great run. They'd like to be up one more spot higher right now, but they do have 2 more opportunities this weekend to achieve just that.
Yeah. Reset a little bit, see if you can work in the old toolbox tonight and find some more speed for that Porsche. The thing with Michael Cooper is he's getting a lot of track time this weekend. He's also running in the GT4 Sprint X race with Aaron Vogel for the Flying Lizard Motorsport team. So, you know, maybe that's a benefit for Michael, just working with different groups and, you know, finding some extra little tricks of the trade in terms of getting around this racetrack and getting his car a little bit more dialed in.
And it's a benefit for those 2 different groups as well. He is a McLaren factory driver, so he's got that level of insight, that level of performance that he can bring and establish some pretty good data baselines and the like. There's a look at Jared Andretti, who was hanging on to that 4th spot in class and 4th overall. Dynan just continues to just chip away. It's in small increments, but you can see he's seriously closer now. 1.2 seconds officially last time by. And it might be down to a little bit less than that here as we're coming up on 5 minutes to go, Cal.
Yeah, the important thing is, though, he's increased that gap to Paul Terry up to 4.5 seconds. So there's really no benefit in Michael Dynan, even if he feels he could maybe chase down Jarrett and try and make a pass here before the checkered flag. It really doesn't give him any more points. Jarrett there just really cutting through that first apex of turn 9. That's where they've really been calling out on some track limits here this weekend. If you cut through there too much, they'll actually ding you, particularly in qualifying, take your fast lap away. If you do it repeatedly in the race, you could be in trouble there as well. So we've always seen Jared Andretti run that unique line. He likes to really take a shallow entry, carry a lot of speed into the corner, and then they work on the setup to get that McLaren to really have a lot of rotation and turn in the middle so he can still get off the second part.
And you got to think that that has to relate to all of his midget and sprint car racing, where you're very comfortable with the back end of the car being loose, swinging around a little bit. And you, I guess in this kind of situation, he just has to pretend there's a cushion out there.
That's right.
That he can get up on here. But what you're saying about for Michael Dynan is, if ever there is a time for big picture thinking for Michael, this is it.
Yeah, right now. And I'm sure that the Flying Lizard Motorsport Group, led by Jim Bell, will be on the horn on the radio to him, just saying, just take it easy, Michael. Don't get close, too close. Where if he has a bobble, you're going to be right there. Just keep the pace. Only a handful of laps here remaining, and just bring it home for another win.
And we're coming up on 4 minutes to go.
Probably 3 more laps, I would imagine.
Yeah. And still want to point out very quickly from Michael Cooper, he continues to hold the CrowdStrike fastest lap in this race. There's a specialty award for that 1:46.858. So not only gets that award, but on top of it, that means that unless somebody clips him right here at the end and with the tire deg here, I doubt that's going to happen. He should be on pole. But, well, Dynan, now he's got to exercise discipline, doesn't he?
Yeah, because he's really coming on strong here as we see the leader coming to the stripe. And I'm actually looking at this. There might only be 2 more laps to go. Looking at the clock, 3:30. Yeah, so they'd need to do. It's going to be tight. Maybe just 2 more laps to go. Around 1:45 as it relates to it would be faster than they've run all day to get that 3rd lap. So probably 2 laps to go for the leader and everyone else.
There you can see the margin, top 3 right there. All in that shot as we come up on 3 to go. Excuse me, 2 to go, 3 minutes to go.
This car just looked dialed in. It's been
just hooked up.
As much of a walk in the park as we've seen in this class for a long time, it seems, for Michael Cooper. And now this is going to be really key. Michael Dynan, what are you going to do with this situation? I mean, the racer's instinct is always to go for position, but it's not going to game in anything. And it seems like Jarrett's struggling for grip a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say that. The car seems to be moving around a lot more here.
And Terry is a little bit closer. Probably taking about half a second out of that gap to Michael Dynan. So definitely his speed has been stymied by Jarrett here just a little bit. He's got a good run here. He could probably just tuck to the inside. Jarrett doesn't give it to him. He runs that shallow entry. Michael's just got to be careful here. Thought about it. Yeah, it's dodgy. I mean, Jarrett's one of the hardest races you're going to see out there. I think if Michael had committed there, he could have probably made it, but he just gave it second thoughts, and that was enough for a racer like Jarrett Andretti. He's like, well, if you ain't going to take it, mate, I'm coming back to the apex.
This is that corner. Andretti
slowed it down a little bit more,
yeah.
got through there a lot more tidily.
Yep.
Yeah, his car is just struggling for grip there, it seems.
We are on the last lap. White flag, as you predicted, Cal, has come out. There's a look at Spencer.
And he looks to be fine. And that gap to Stavely has gone back up a little bit, but Cooper serenely up front. Black Dog Speed Shop crew, Ray Sorensen and everyone there just do such an excellent job. So much experience there. Rick Whitesides, Timmy Caffeine, just guys who have experienced it all over the years, and just a really great core group of brilliant mechanics, quite honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, Timmy Caffeine used to wrench for Newman Haas in IndyCar for many years at the upper level of single-seater racing here. So all the guys based up there in Illinois, and Ray's just got a really great group together that work really hard.
And yeah, and they understand sometimes you just got to adapt, and they do it incredibly well. But I tell you what, Dynan's interested, isn't he?
Well, and he can see in his rearview mirror now. He doesn't need to have the gap told to him by his team. He can see that Paul Terry's getting a little bit closer, but this is the final lap, and I think if he just lets Jarrett Andretti get on his way without defending, they're probably going to just bring it home in these positions. But he's obviously got a lot more car underneath him than Jarrett has right now, and he's not quite sure what to do with it.
Well, I think that's a really good point. Sometimes as a driver, you don't want to have the guy in front of you defending, because you know it's going to overslow things, and just let him go. Meanwhile, speaking of going, Michael Cooper, what a tidy, solid, fast, smart run, and brings it home. Another win on the season. It's 3rd straight, essentially, after winning the last 2 at VIR. Here comes Spencer through, And look at this little scrap here. Now Dynan, yeah, you can see why he's a little worried.
Yeah, Terry's right there. So, yeah, I think the pace was dropping even more so than I could anticipate there.
So Pompelli, Stavely, second and third, fourth in class and overall. Will be Andretti in pro, and then Dynan fifth overall. Another big win in the AM category. Paul Terry in the similar Aston Martin, just with the Reardon Racing team, second. The Paul Terry trucking entry. Jeff Burton, a solid run in the Reardon Racing. Burton Lumber entry in third in the AM class. Sean Quinlan, fourth in AM. And the Stephen Cameron Racing Products BMW. And then late in the going, it looked like Frank Gannett was able to ease back away from Clennon just a little bit. And he will bring it home and complete the top 5 in the AM class with Clennon 6th and Bell 7th.
Yeah, so with that victory, a 9-point advantage will balloon up a little bit to 16.
Yeah.
Which is a big swing in points between first and second. So those victories really add up, and that's the 4th win of the year for Michael Cooper.
And here you see the results. If it's a black number on a white background, that's the pro class. If it's white on red, that's AM. And that is how things shook out. And you're wondering if you're not real familiar with road racing, you saw Cooper waving, and we were talking earlier about there being no fans here. He's waving to the corner workers, and this might be a nice time to shout out to those folks who stand out in this hot sun all day long and provide communications to race control and information to the drivers via flags and the like, and to say a big thanks to all the corner workers, many of them from SCCA, the Sports Car Club of America. So big thank you to them, and Cooper certainly giving them a big wave and thank you as well. So Cooper, fast lap, gets that CrowdStrike fastest lap award and pole position for tomorrow, and it looks like it would be Pompelli starting second. So you wonder if Pompelli will be able to try an outside move through turn 1 up into 2 and see if he can work that magic.
Yeah, he's certainly going to be going for it, because you just can't afford to let these races get away from you. I mean, to get those points back is really difficult. And but Michael Cooper looks tough to beat here. He loves this racetrack. It's one of his favorites. He's had so much success here over the years.
I think he's won in virtually every category you can here. It's impressive stuff, including GT3. And just want to give a shout out, Paul Terry, fastest race lap in the AM class, so he gets the CrowdStrike fastest lap in AM, and that should put him on pole for tomorrow with Dynan alongside. So all Aston Martin front row in the AM class for tomorrow as Michael Cooper steps out. And he has just, and I'll tell you what, you know, last year when they didn't quite have a handle on this car, Cooper, in the first few races, what kept him alive in the championship were his opening laps. We've talked about that. He just is he's one of those guys that can find speed right on the off. And he just, as you said, he's one of the few drivers that has a plan and can actually execute it most of the time. Yeah. That's remarkable.
It really is. I mean, that was a pretty controlled race there at the front. So I'm sure Spencer's kind of scratching his head here a little bit, you know, to come out of the box and, you know, be quick in practice, grab the pole, and then in the race conditions, Michael just seems to be able to turn the tables on him.
Yeah, and again, now it's a matter of, all right, what do you do in the overnight here? Time to try and come up with something different here in terms of an approach. I mean, TRG is one of the best teams in the paddock, no question about that. So it's not like there's a lot of give up in those lads at all.
No, but you'd certainly think whatever tricks they had, they would have on the car here today in terms of the setup.
Exactly.
And would have been given Spencer the best platform they can come up with this weekend.
There's Spencer on the right and Drew Stavely on the left as they're making their way over to the podium. There's Tony. Nice to see Tony, even though he's not behind the wheel of a car at a track.
I'm sure it was tough to watch from home, and I'm sure being here is nice to be with the group. But
exactly.
Hopefully it'll give them the burning passion to get back.
Let's take a look at the highlights here, and you can see Cooper trying that outside move. He had made it work on the waved off start, but this counter move here was a thing of brilliance, wasn't it?
It really was just racecraft at its absolute best, and Spencer just has to give him the room on the exit of the corner. That gives you the inside line and the drive up to turn 3 here, and he grabs the lead, never to relinquish the rest of the way.
And then Sean Quinlan having a solid run, but you can see that was Frank Gannett down to the inside of Clennon. It got Clennon offline into the marbles, into the dirt. Jason Bell was able to come through and pick a spot up, but these guys weren't done, that's for sure. They had some great battling, but up front, Michael Cooper just controlled his destiny beautifully once he got to the front, and earns another big win on the championship, and has 2 more opportunities here this weekend to go. But for more on what I just unfolded, let's get down to Victory Circle and Ryan.
Well, it's a 4th win on the season, 3rd in a row for Michael Cooper. And this one really came down to the start. The start was so important, you got to do it twice. Take us through the start of this race, how you took the lead and how you held it.
Yeah, it was a little unfortunate we had to do it twice because I showed Spencer my hand on the first one, and then he knew what he needed to do and run up there a little quicker and get up in front of me going into 1. But luckily I was able to cross over and make it stick on the outside of 2. Our car's pretty good on cold tires, and yeah, from there it was really tough, you know, just sliding around all the time. But you know, we had like a 10th a lap over those guys over the course of the race, and that just added up.
Tire degradation was a huge storyline coming in. It appeared at least that your car was able to take care of its tires a little bit better than the competition. Did you see it that way, and if so, how did you manage it?
I've owned this place since I started coming here and touring cars in 2012. I've won in everything. I know this place like the back of my own hand. You know, I can be beaten on any given day, but it's pretty damn tough to beat me here in Sonoma.
That was sure on display here this weekend. Congratulations.
Thanks,
Best
Ryan.
of luck the rest of the weekend.
I don't know, confident guy there.
I was going to say, my gut's telling me he likes this place. Yeah, yeah, he thoroughly enjoys coming here, and I think he relishes the challenge, doesn't he? As you take a look here now at the AM results, Dynan with Terry closing in right at the end. Some of that because Dynan was stuck behind Andretti. Then a bit of a gap to Burton and Quinlan, and then Frank Gannett rounding out the top 5. Nice run for Frank, and then Clennon and Bell completing the field here. And for Dynan, this has just been a dynasty of a start to the season here. That was a stretch, and I apologize for that. But let's get down to Ryan and hear from him.
Sorry, folks.
Oh, speaking of win streaks, this guy's got maybe the longest one going in the series so far. Michael Dynan really on a roll right now. Congratulations on the race win. I know you kind of were in a difficult position there at the end trying to figure out what to do with the out-of-class car that you were chasing. What were they telling you on the radio, and how did you try and sort out that situation?
Yeah, so I was just told to not take any risks, try to maintain the gap to Terry behind. Obviously, I wanted to get the pass done, but at the same time, it's a long weekend. This is the first race of 6, so it's important to keep the car in good shape and take care of it for the remaining races.
Off to a picture-perfect start. Congratulations.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Well, he and that team had a little bit of training on how to preserve a car, because at VIR, one of the cars had a problem, and they ended up using one car for both the Sprint and Sprint X, and it worked flawlessly.
And he indicated there, like maybe they're doing the same thing this weekend, where
Yeah.
this car's got to do 6 races. But nonetheless, I think, you know, he was caught between a devil and a hard place there. And, you know, what happened was, I think if he hadn't pressured Jarrett Andretti as much, maybe Jarrett could have maintained a slightly better pace, and
Yeah.
that gap wouldn't have been so compressed. But either way, he gets home and gets the victory.
Absolutely, and the nice thing is, triple header weekend. We get to do it again tomorrow on Saturday and a 3rd race on Sunday. So make sure and tune in for more Pirelli GT4 Sprint racing.